Hello. Looks like we are live. Welcome back to the second installment of Chapter Chat Live with PRSA Colorado. I am the chapter president this year, Michelle Ellis, and I am very happy to be joined today with Colorado's jobs guru, Andrew Hudson. Thanks for joining us, Andrew.
Oh, thanks for having me. I'm a huge fan of PRSA. I have been a member in the past. I'm not right now, I'm afraid to say, but I have been a member in the past, and you guys do incredible work.
Well, that is okay. We're just glad to have you here. You really have your fingers on the pulse of the job market here, which we know has been all over the place in the past year. Why don't we just dive in and chat a little bit about how would you describe the job market right now in Colorado, in Denver specifically?
Well, it's hard to believe. Just a year ago, Colorado was about as close to full employment as you could possibly imagine. And then it was just like hitting this brick wall with the pandemic, and everything just came to a crushing halt. And, I call it jobs whiplash. And then throughout the summer, it started to build up again. And then in the fall, with the second wave of the pandemic, it started going back down again. And right now, it is absolutely booming. There are so many opportunities out there. Companies are kind of taking the approach of what their post-pandemic world is going to look like. The average life of a job posting is about 6 weeks. So from the moment they post to the minute they hire. So, it's a really good time right now. And there are some fantastic opportunities out there.
Okay, so what are some things that PR people can do to sell their skills in such a competitive market right now?
Well, I always say public relations folks are in the best position because this is what they do for a living, right? I mean, they tell stories, they convince, and they understand how audiences work and developing narratives. Now, the difficult part is, we're all professionals in doing this for others, but the thing that takes us out of our comfort zone is doing it for ourselves. But
Yes.
At the same time, think about all the skills that you have as a PR person in communications, and not only being able to sell yourself into a job, but also in terms of marketing yourself. Because, right now, when you are looking for a job, it's weird to say it, but you are a product in the marketplace of job seekers. And you have to create a personal brand. And we could talk for 2 hours about personal branding. But everything you know about branding and communications and networking and how you connect with people, all of that stuff is so important in terms of how you sell yourself. Staying so focused and confident and believe in yourself and believe in the message that you're putting out there.
So you're talking about networking, and we hear this a lot. It's not what you know, it's who you know. This is a challenging time to network. What recommendations do you have for job seekers to continue to keep their networks growing?
Well, first off is be involved in PRSA. Associations are tremendous, and I'm totally serious about this. Associations are tremendous places for you to be connected and to develop your connections and your networks. I would tell you also, and this sounds strange coming from a guy who runs a successful jobs board, but limit the amount of time you're looking for a job on a job board. Job boards are great for prospecting and determining where the jobs are, but they also offer a lot of false hope, especially the job boards like Monster and, even LinkedIn and Indeed to a degree. But again, spend maybe 25% of your time looking for a job using job boards to do so, and just use those for prospects and find the best jobs. But this idea of just randomly sending off resumes on job boards, it's like fishing for a whale in a lake. It's just really difficult to do that.
Yeah.
The best way to find a job is to develop that network of connections. And again, networking, it takes you out of your comfort zone. The idea of calling somebody and saying, hey, I need help. I'm in the position where I'm trying to either leave my job and start a new job, or I'm unemployed, I need a new job. But we all have networks. There's that first tier of networks, which you all have. They're your cheerleaders. They're the ones who are going to say, hey, whatever I can do to help. Or they're the ones who have said in the past, if you're ever thinking about making a move, call me first. There's your second tier, which is, this might be people that you know in your own smaller community. Maybe they go to your church or your synagogue, or they're your kid's next door neighbor. They're on the Little League team, or your next door neighbor works for a company that you're interested in. All of those people are also part of your network. The third tier is really that tier of cold calling. And that takes people really out of their comfort zone, because it's like, oh my gosh, I'm just going to call somebody randomly that I read about in the newspaper. But it's also an important part of networking. And have a script ready. Be ready to sit there and say, this is what I'm looking for, and never be afraid to make an ask under any condition. And that ask might be, can you open up your Rolodex and recommend 5 people I can call? Can you introduce me to your HR person? Can you look at my resume? So there's a lot of different ways.
So you talk about the fact that the job market is booming right now, but I do know there are a lot of people looking for jobs. We have students who graduated in 2020 who are really having a hard time getting their foot in the door. We have people who maybe lost their jobs because of the pandemic. We know that jobs are out there, and we can find them on the jobs board, and we know about the branding, but what are some of the tools that PR professionals should have in their back pocket to help showcase their skills?
Sure. I'm going to go back to the branding issue for a second. So I was the head of communications and advertising for Frontier Airlines. And that was when we had the fun talking animals on the back of the tails. And one of the things that we really emphasized was we had this great advertising campaign. I mean, it increased our awareness so much, and it increased our traffic as much as well. So we created awareness. But the other part of it was, are we going to deliver on the brand promise? And the brand promise for Frontier was a whole different animal. That's pretty bodacious. I mean, we're saying we're different than everybody else. So the idea was, what are the touch points that we could show that we're different? It's the same thing when you're a job seeker. You have touch points to be able to communicate about your brand, your accomplishments, your successes, your education, your skills, your talents, all of that stuff. And the main touch points are your resume, cover letters, conversations, networking. All of that has to be consistent in terms of your focus, your confidence, and your background. And working on those, I mean, resumes today are such a different breed than when I was right out of college. I mean, it used to be where you would just send out one really good resume, and you'd open up the Rocky Mountain News and the Denver Post, and that's where all the jobs would be, and you just send that out. Today, you have to have a customized resume for every job that you apply for. Now, I'm not saying you have to rip up your resume and rewrite it, but you have to look at that job posting and interpret it and say, okay, what are the 3 to 5 things that that company is really looking for? Now, you, as the job seeker, you are really the subject matter expert when you're thinking about a job. And you have to put that in the back of your mind. The people who are putting out these job postings, they are probably not the subject matter expert. You are. And you need to think about that throughout your entire process, from sending in your resume to when you're doing the actual job interview. But interpreting that job posting and looking for keywords and key phrases, and that's what you're going to incorporate into your resume. And that's for a couple of reasons. Number one is they have these things called applicant tracking systems, which are these god-awful databases that are looking for keywords and key phrases. And that first round, a computer is ranking you, not a human being. Now, that's not true with everybody, but even like on LinkedIn, when they're using their applicant tracking systems on there. So you need to be aware of that. Second thing is, you need to anticipate the types of questions that you're going to get asked when you do get an interview, so that you are so prepared and you're ready to do that. And the most important thing is being your authentic self. It is so hard being a job seeker. Believe me, I get it. There is just a common sense of rejection that goes with being a job seeker. It happens to everybody. And rejection can be a lot of different things. It can be sending in a resume and not getting a response, or you get to a job interview, but then you don't get the job, or you're a finalist and you don't get the job. You cannot let those rejections somehow change you. Good idea to ask questions and say, what did I do that there's something I could do better. Most likely the company's not going to tell you why you didn't get the job, but you
Yeah.
still have to look in the mirror and recognize that same person who still has those skills, those accomplishments, that background, those talents, the promotions, everything you have. Get back up and start again. It's a hard thing for job seekers, and it's hard not to take it personally, but believe me, everybody goes through this. It's a very common thing, and it sucks, and you want to scream sometimes that you didn't get that job that you seem was perfect and you put all that energy into it, but you just got to dust yourself off and get back at it.
Well, and if you're doing media relations, that really is a huge part of our jobs, is pitching stories, and they're rejected and you're ignored a lot. So it's just shifting that mindset and not allowing yourself to have it reflect on who you believe you are as a person or a professional.
That's such a good point. I mean, you're exactly right. And now it's just taking that same mindset and saying, okay, I'm not going to take it personally. We're just moving on to the next one.
Yeah. So a lot of people are beginning to do these kind of resume/portfolio websites. Do you feel, I mean, I'm sure you're seeing that. Do you feel like that is something that is necessary for a professional seeking a job in public relations or marketing?
I think it's important if it's specific to the job skills that you want to demonstrate. So, for example, a couple of years ago, there was this big thing called video resumes. Everyone's like, oh, I need a video resume, and then I can send that along and people can see me and I can control it. And there's some really fun and unique ones. But, at the end of the day, that really didn't pan out. And most HR people were like, kind of, they didn't think that was very appropriate. If you are going to demonstrate graphic design, web design, social media, or if you're in broadcast, for example, or something like that, yeah, then those types of websites can be very, very helpful. And quite frankly, some companies, they'll require some type of a portfolio to show what they're doing. For most people, you really don't need that. I mean, you just have to realize that, number one, any job these days, they're going to be getting dozens, if not hundreds of resumes.
Yeah.
So, again, making connections, looking at that job, going to LinkedIn, who do you know? Is there any connection I have through PRSA or any connection I have from former vendors or clients that, they can tell me or make that hookup for me? That's always important. But it's really about making sure that that all of your touch points are customized to the job. And when you're ready to be interviewed, that you're anticipating those questions, and you have stories as well. Make sure that you have stories. Stories in job seeking is so important because it demonstrates, if you have this major accomplishment, you can demonstrate what you're all about and how you operate and how you work. And you want to bring your background to life through stories.
Kind of like case studies.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the worst cover letters I get are cover letters that are, to whom it may concern, I have 15 years experience in communications. I worked here, I worked there, as opposed to, guess what? I love your business. And here's the connection that I have. And when I was working at this such and such an agency, I had a client that was in that space, and here's what I did. Here's how I convinced people. Here's how I raised money through my CFO. Here was the results of that. I mean, people want you to come to life. And I know it's hard, but writing each cover letter, but we're good. I mean, PR people are fast, they're efficient, and they can do this quickly.
Sorry, you're breaking up just a little bit. But what I'm hearing is it's kind of similar. Like, again, I will relate it to what I do for a living. The best way to work with a media person and to secure a placement is to personalize your pitch. Don't just send them a form letter. Make it look like you've spent the time to really see who they are, what they care about, and appeal to that.
That's completely right.
So if you're applying for jobs and you are not making the finalist list, you're not hearing back, you're really maybe struggling and feeling a little lackluster, what are your recommendations to kind of check and make sure you're bringing to the table what you should be for the interview and application process?
Yeah, I think it is always helpful, if you're feeling as if you're not getting the response that you want, to step back for a minute and maybe go have your resume reviewed by someone you trust, a mentor, a friend, a partner, whoever, and say, look, here's what I'm trying to get across. Is it coming across? And get advice like that. Some people use professional resume writers, which I think are a great investment, not only for this one job, but for jobs you're going to be moving forward on, because you're having a set of eyeballs that is an expert in resume writing, helping you to develop what it is you're trying to do. And they'll look at things very differently. They'll look at in terms of what are the things that are going to really pop and highlight on your resume that you might think wouldn't. I will say the other thing is, and this is really important, modesty sucks. Modesty in terms of applying for a job and having this kind of aw shucks attitude, or, oh, it was a team effort. I mean, there's times for that, but red hot confidence is the sweet spot in terms of looking for a job, and being able to walk in and be able to talk about yourself very proud and very confidently about what it is that you've done in your career.
So if you had one piece of advice for people who are out there right now looking for a job, besides going to your website to see the job listings that are out there, what would that be?
Well, I think for PR people right now, you are in a very unique situation. There are so many companies that have been, and government organizations, nonprofits, that have been affected by this pandemic. It's a massive disruption, a disruption to their business, a disruption to their customers, to their clients, and many of them are having to pivot and reinvent themselves. As a communicator, you have an incredible opportunity to go in and say, look, I know how to communicate this. I know how to promote what it is you're doing. I know how to tell the story in terms of the pivot that you're making. And also the examples that you can use from your days having to deal with crisis communications. Or if you had an example of doing communications during a merger and acquisition, any kind of those major disruptions that have occurred, those are things that people are looking for right now. Internal communications, those are huge. I'm getting a lot more of those positions posted today. And I'll tell you, the other one is diversity and diversity jobs. These are jobs that and equity jobs. I'm seeing so many of those jobs come out right now. And again, those are completely tied to communications and marketing and being able to tell stories and develop audiences.
That's great. So I have added to the scroll at the bottom of the screen the URL for PRSA Colorado to find out about our upcoming programs and opportunities to connect, engage, and network. I've also included the URL for Andrew Hudson's jobs list. So if you are not already going to that site to look for jobs, you can it's Andrew Hudson's jobslist.com. Okay. If you have any questions, where can people reach you, Andrew?
You could either text me at 720-289-5877. You can email me at ahudson@ahjobslist.com. Yeah, it might not get an instant response, but I try my hardest to respond to everybody who writes into me.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it today. And good luck to everyone out there seeking jobs. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye.
Take care.